Hey sis, welcome to the Sisterhood, Soul, and Strategy podcast, a space for women building businesses that feel as good as they look. I'm Steph, a small town girl from Wisconsin with big dreams to positively impact the world. This podcast is from the heart, where we share real conversations about building intentional businesses that thrive in every season. And the best part, we talk both soul and strategy, and we wrap it all up in sisterhood. Because let's be real, business is more fun in community. So no matter your age or stage of small business ownership, you stumbled upon this podcast for a reason. Now, let's get to the good stuff. Hey, it's Steph, and welcome back to the podcast for part 2 of this season series where we're going to talk all about the growing season. And to start this part in the book, I have a quote that I love. A garden is a grand teacher. It teaches patience and careful watchfulness. It teaches industry and thrift. Above all, it teaches entire trust. Gertrude Jekyll. And I love this quote because this season, again, is all about growing and doing so in a way that doesn't burn you out. Now, I love a good growing season. Who doesn't? Every entrepreneur I know wants to be in a growing season and scaling and expanding and building. And those are the words. That's the energy. It is about growing your dream and building it and scaling it and expanding it. But there are also, just like every other season, challenges that come with the growth season. And often that is overwhelm, busyness, and again, just that impatience, like wanting to be at that next level, but you're kind of stuck in between the growth and expansion. Like maybe you go from being a solopreneur to scaling your business. At the growing phase, usually your systems that you started with are breaking. You might be in a season where you know you need to hire or you need to delegate or you need to bring someone in part-time. And maybe you do that. And maybe then you realize that it's a lot to manage. It's a lot of responsibility. This season is where I see a lot of people start to grow their team and start to grow their dream, and they want to scale it. But then the cost of that is often at their own health. It's the cost of their livelihood. It's not being able to step away from their business because they now have built something that they're chained to it. So they sometimes can just say, this isn't worth it, and go all the way back to being the solopreneur. Or this is where you have that kind of hit me in the head moment of, I need to build this more sustainably, or it's not worth it. I can't keep growing at this pace. You actually have to start thinking and operating differently in order to go from that growing season to scaling and expanding and hitting a harvest season where then you can start to optimize things. But growing season is exciting because you're finally feeling busy, quote unquote. You're finally feeling like the momentum is happening. But you also want to do it in a way that doesn't cost you everything. Doesn't cost you more money, doesn't cost you more time with your family, doesn't cost you your health, all of those things. So in the chapters of the growing season that I write about, I share how I moved from that original studio space of my very first business, that 600 square foot gym inside of the MMA space. I moved from that to my own studio. I took out my first business loan. So in the growing season, usually the cost is higher, right? You are probably making more money, but now you have to start to spend money on maybe team, maybe a bigger space, maybe some software upgrading. You're having to actually spend more money to keep up with the growth of expanding. So I took out my first business loan. I did my first build out, and I thought that was going to be my dream space, that I was going to be there forever, many, many years to come. And that's why I invested the money in that space. And in that season of growth, I was growing my team. So I started bringing in more instructors and training them up. I was also growing in my client base, right? So I had more people that were coming in and joining our membership, but I was also growing in my lessons learned. So in these chapters, I talk a lot about the beginner business mistakes and how I just assumed investing this money into a brick and mortar space was going to pay me back, that I'd be able to pay it off no problem, and that it would be worth it because I would stay there a long time. And if you read the book or you know my story, you know that I started getting a lot of red flags from my landlord. And in this season, I had to learn a lot of things the hard way. And in the growing season, there's going to be growing pains. And this is what I'm talking about when it comes to growing pains is like, again, needing more support for the business to keep up because you're feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling busy. But then also sometimes you make these decisions without full transparency or clarity because you're just trying to grow. You're just trying to keep up with the speed and the pace and the momentum, and you're afraid of losing that momentum, right? So I signed a lease on that space and did the build out, not really fully realizing what I had signed up for. And this was the season when I started getting red flags from my landlord, and I had to actually end up seeking out a different space that then was going to cost me even more money. And on the back end of that, I thought that just leaving the space was going to be, I was already investing more to move into a new space and do a whole nother build out that cost me almost like, $150,000 that I talk about in the book. But I thought I could just leave and I could just, wipe my hands clean of it and it would be over. And my landlord actually pursued me in a lawsuit after I left that space. So I learned a lot of lessons the hard way about contracts, trust, never doing business on a handshake. And basically, there are going to be experiences that are icky and that you're going to feel taken advantage of or like you didn't know the full story. In my case, I felt very young and dumb and naive, thinking no one would ever do anything bad to me because I was treating everyone else around me well. I was a good tenant. All of those things didn't matter. And those sometimes are the hardest growing pains. So I also talk about in this chapter, though, that I took that next leap into my dream space. So even though it was a really unfortunate situation with my landlord, I saw it as a turning point and an opportunity to basically find my mentor. And at this point, I was like 6 years into entrepreneurship, and I had never had a true mentor outside of just my family that supported me. So taking that big, scary leap, growing phases require big leaps of faith. And there is no way around that. You cannot grow your business without taking risk. Every entrepreneur that I know that is super successful at one point or another had to take a very large leap of faith in something that they didn't know if it was going to pay off or not. And oftentimes with that leap of faith usually comes risk of monetary value, right? Money, like spending money on things that you don't know if you're going to see a return on an investment. So moving into that dream space ended up giving me the mentor that I didn't even know I needed. So I talk a lot about my mentor, Misty, in this part of the book of the growing phases and how I met her at the perfect time. She was able to really help guide me and show me just different ways to grow my business, to really keep track of my finances, to hustle, to be gritty. Like I learned so much from that season. And that's the next point I want to talk about because the growing season also requires you to get gritty. with what you have, with your resources. The planting season does too, but the growing season does as well because now you have a higher risk. Like if you are in a true growing season and you've taken some big leaps, now you really do need them to pay off. You need that ROI because in the planting season, you maybe didn't like go all in. You didn't have to spend a bunch of money. If you started humbly, like I did, the planting season didn't require a lot of money. It was just the confidence and the overcoming the fear to do the thing, to actually put yourself out there and try. But the growing season usually comes with a lot more risk, a lot more responsibility. You're now maybe paying people to help you. You have maybe higher overhead. This is where you have to be really careful because your profit might shrink down if you are not paying attention to it. And a lot of times you are making investments in your vision and the future of your business that you are not 100% certain are going to pay off, right? So those are some of the pains of the growing season and why you need to get gritty. You need to, hustle a little bit more. I'm all about taking care of yourself and, pouring into your cup as a soulpreneur along your journey. Do not confuse that for this advice. But I see far too often people not willing to put in the actual work. We want the results. We want the shiny business. We want the 10K months. But we're not willing to do the things that are not maybe fun for us, maybe are uncomfortable for us. So what am I talking about? In the growth season, I'm talking about getting gritty and working again with what you have. For me, that was like going and like literally knocking on businesses' doors to try to get them to share about my studio. So I would knock on doors and give different businesses discounts for their employees to come like around the neighborhood of where I was moving to. Maybe it is literally personally reaching out to people. I was using the software at the time called TextLine to make sales. I was building funnels. I was doing tons of free marketing out in the community. I would go teach yoga classes in the park for free. I would teach them at the school for free. I was doing everything possible because I had overhead to pay and I needed as many people coming through my doors, joining my membership as possible so that my big investments, my big risks that I took would actually pay off. Too often we take these big risks and leaps and then we just like pray and hope that they pay off. But what are we doing? What are we willing to do to roll our sleeves up and say, I'm not too good. I'm not above going out and doing this thing that is really uncomfortable. Maybe it is literally whatever your version of knocking on doors is. Maybe it's cold calling. Maybe it's just getting in the right rooms, going and networking with people. What do you need to do to make that big leap worth it? So the growing season is tough because our schedules are full, just so full. And I talk about that being also a struggle and a challenge of this season is that we kind of lose our personal life along the way, right? We kind of lose the ability to just have lazy weekends and have, free days and things like that because the business is growing and we are growing and we're, doing everything we can do to grow it, to optimize it, to all of those things. But this season can be very overwhelming and it's why we need to be so intentional with our time. It's also why we need to build systems for sustainability because there are going to be seasons that require a lot of us. They're going to require us to hustle more. Okay. I'm not anti-hustle over here, but we cannot do that for a sustained amount of time. It's seasons of hustle, right? It's maybe a couple months. And then we get to take our, foot off the gas pedal, knowing that it's a season of hustle and that it's not forever. And we can still pour into ourselves along the way, even in a busy season. but knowing that there's an end to it, right? Because we're building the systems, training the team, doing the gritty work, right? Like we have to be so intentional with our time, our money, our energy in this growing season so that we don't burn out. Because oftentimes on the other side of a growing season can be a storm. And we can't burn out before the storm. The storm actually requires more energy from us than any season, right? So we have to be pouring into ourselves even when it's busy, even when our calendar is full, even when it's really hard to do. We have to do that, even if it's just the smallest things. This is why I keep talking about rituals and rhythms, because in the growing season, those rituals and rhythms are the things that are going to keep you grounded. They're going to give you that little bit of fuel you need to keep going when you're in a busy season. Hey, I just needed a quick water break from the podcast, and I want to tell you about what's in my water. It is my new current favorite daily supplement, and I drink it. It's called Glossy, and it is not just a great supplement for hydration and gut health, but it is truly changing my skin in the best way. Glossy is skincare that you drink because it impacts your largest organ and your insides. My favorite flavors are the strawberry hibiscus and the watermelon. I add it to my water every single day. So if you are looking for something that is more than just a hydration stick, Glossy is it. And you can get 40% off your first order with my code getglossy.com/Steph Ross. And you can find that link in the show notes. Cheers. Oh, hey sis, I am just putting on my favorite lip gloss, Small Town Beauty by Asia. This is my favorite color. It's called 23. It's hot pink and I am obsessed. She has so many different fun colors. She has a lip treatments that can nourish your lips. But personally, I'm a lip gloss bestie and I absolutely love the human behind this brand, Asia. Her mission and vision is to make sure that just because we live in a small town doesn't mean we can't have incredible products like this lip gloss. So if you are a small town girly who loves a good lip gloss, you need to check out Small Town Beauty by Asia, and you can use my code to save $5 at checkout. So knowing that this is the season when you need to start delegating and outsourcing, which means you need to optimize for some systems. You need to start tracking your processes. You need to start getting clarity on where is your best time and energy spent. And I just want to be totally transparent because I'm in a growing season right now. When I went on my maternity leave, back in 2024, end of 2024, I was in a harvest season. I had weathered such a crazy storm, which you read about in the book. I was coming out of that storm. I rebuilt my entire life and identities. And then I was in a harvest season for like a year or two. Then, as I shared in part 1, becoming a mom kind of put me back into a planting season where it was all new. Like I was navigating new roles, new identities, new responsibilities, new things that I didn't know. And it would have been kind of easy to just maybe coast in my business at that time when I was having a baby. But you guys know me. I'm not a coaster. I have big dreams. And so within the same, 6 months of having my son, I published this book. And that put me back in a planting season as well because I became an author and that was all new, right? Like, what do I do with this book baby now? And at the same time, I decided we were going to launch Sister Circle chapters at the end of that year that my book came out. So again, planting season. I was then planting seeds for this new level of growth for my community, Small Business Sister Circle. So really, 2025, I was in a very much a planting season. Now we're in 2026 and we are full on growing, which I am so excited about It's the momentum that I've been wanting. We have new chapters loading. I have like endless opportunities coming at me all the time for speaking or, collaborations for real estate for all of my businesses. And my time and my capacity is not the same as it was before I had my son. So I've had to be really intentional about where I spend my time, my money, and my energy. And to be honest, I am taking big leaps. I feel like I'm taking big risks. Like my business is growing and it's exciting. And it also scares the heck out of me like every single day because I'm doing new things and there's starting to be more on the line. And for me right now, there is more on the line because it's not even just about money. Like, I don't want to waste money, obviously, but also I don't want to waste time doing things that don't move the needle forward because to me, that time will always be better spent with my family then, right? So I'm in a growing season. And I've had to do a lot of optimizing. I've had to do a lot of figuring out where does my time need to be spent and who can I hire or pull in or delegate these tasks to. I'm also rebuilding so many systems in my business because I need these next phases of growth, of launching new chapters to feel more effortless. I need them to be not 1000% reliant on me. I need them to be more automated, more easy, more like I come in for these pieces and the rest is done without me, right? So that's the season that I'm in currently. And while it is so exciting and I have prayed for the growing season like we all do in the planting season, it doesn't mean that it's easy. It doesn't mean that it doesn't have its own unique challenges in the growing season. And the last piece that I want to land on with this season is about the chapter I wrote on hustling with heart and how it's really easy to get wrapped up in our business when we're in this growing season and forget about every other aspect of our life. And I don't want that for you. I did that when I was growing my studio and I was in my dream studio, which came with so many costs and so many, kind of big, heavy responsibilities. It was really hard to like prioritize my health, my husband. We were getting married that year, my friendships, my hobbies. I felt like I had no hobbies outside of the work that I did because there just wasn't time for it. And so that was the growing season I was in back in 2019. And we're 7 years later? And I'm in the growing season again, and I'm doing it differently. I'm not going to allow myself to lose who I am, as well as my family and my friends in this growing season. It's hard. I feel like I have to say no to a lot of things and a lot of people that I don't want to disappoint, but it's also because I have to prioritize myself and my health and my family first, as well as the work that I'm doing and growing and making this big, beautiful impact in the world through my business. So, as we close out this episode on growing, if you are in this season, what I want you to really focus on is momentum that is sustainable through systems, automations, and delegation. I also really want you to make sure you don't lose yourself in this season, that you have those daily rituals, those weekly rhythms to really fill your cup up so that you can keep going and growing through your soulpreneur journey. Because, my friend, it's not going to be easier. The more you grow your business, it doesn't get easier. You just get better at it. And I write about that in the book too, is everyone thinks that the growing and the harvest seasons are easy. They're not. They still have responsibilities and challenges and a level of, heaviness to them, but you just get better at handling it. Your resilience muscles grow. Your ability to regulate grows as long as you're willing to do the work and also to step out of your business and take care of yourself along the way. I'm excited for anyone in this season. I would love for you to reach out to me because, like I said, I'm in this season right now too with growing and scaling my business and doing it in a sustainable way, in a different way than I used to in the past. And I would just love to be a cheerleader alongside you. We can do this together. We can cheer on each other. And I look forward to discussing the next season with you, which is Weathering the Storms. Hey, sis, if this episode spoke to you, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss our weekly conversations that drop every Monday. And would you share this with a fellow sister that needs to hear this message too? If you're craving sisterhood, soul, and strategy in action, I'd love for you to step inside our Sister Circle community, where we gather, grow, and build intentional businesses together in real life and real time. I promise, business is more fun in sisterhood. Until next time, keep leading with soul, honoring your season, and don't forget, I'm always cheering for you.